A very good afternoon to you. You're welcome to Africa Discourse on Independent Television. My name is Evans Nukuge. Now, the last time we had this program, that was 7 days ago, last week Monday, we said that the last is not heard. And we're still talking about the coup, the ongoing coup in Niger. And we've also said that a series of meetings, have been going on, and it will continue to go. Only that the last meeting they had on Friday, that was in Accra, Ghana now, whereby Ecowas came out and said that a D-Day has been set for military intervention in Niger. But the D-Day is not known to any person except members of the bloc, members, nations of the bloc. And also, too, we also understand that the military junta in Niger has said that they are ready now to return Niger back to popular civil rule in 3 years' time. What are the issues? How can we continue in all this? Should Ecowas wait for the military junta in Niger for another 3 years' time? Or the Ecowas bloc should go on with their military intervention? Now, we're going to be looking at all this today on the program Africa Discourse. And we're so privileged to have Nuruddin Asulugi, a foremost Islamic scholar, and of course somebody that has very, very strong interest on international issues, international news, and of course international gist. So you're welcome to this program, Africa Discourse.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Good day, viewers.
All right, now, so let's quickly see the major headlines and on some of the major issues on the continent of Africa this afternoon. And at the very first one here, we've got Russia, China look to advance agendas at BRICS summits of developing countries in South Africa. That's one major headline now. Russia, China look to advance agendas at BRICS summits of developing countries in South Africa. Then, of course, we also have another headline. Somalia bans TikTok and Telegraph to curb terrorist propaganda. Let's see the next one now, picture 2, where we have Somalia on picture 2. All right, so we have Somalia bans TikTok and Telegraph to curb terrorist and propaganda. You will recall that TikTok is one major social media that has taken over the world recently. So in Somalia, TikTok and Telegraph has been banned to curb terrorists. And of course, for headline 3, that's picture 3 now, we have Ecowas set D-Day for possible military intervention in Niger. That was, that was the meeting they had on Friday in Accra, Ghana, whereby the commissioner, that's the Ecowas Commissioner for Political Affairs and Peace and Security, Abdel Fattah Musa, said during the closing meeting of that ceremony that a D-Day has been set. And of course, that D-Day is only known to member states. So we have ECOWAS set D-Day for possible military intervention in Niger. Then also for picture 4, headline 4, we have a leader talking about General Abdurrahman Chiani now, that's the head of the military junta in Niger. Leader says junta will restore civilian rule to Niger in 3 years. That is the latest coming from the military junta in Niger. Then, of course, for the fifth one now, the fifth headline, that's for picture 5 now. We have U.S. military preparing for worst case scenario, evacuation from Niger. U.S. military preparing for worst case scenario, evacuation in Niger. These are some of the major headlines that we are following at this time on stories on the continent of Africa. Now, let's hit the ball rolling now as we set the discussion this afternoon. Nuruddin, you're welcome one more time.
Thank you for having me.
All right, various issues now trailing the military junta in Niger. We've seen series of meetings, and of course how some Nigerians, former head of state Abubakar had to join the military, the ECOWAS official to go to, to Niamey, to go to Niger to try to broker peace now. Now, from what we are seeing now, it appears that ECOWAS, they've said that they've set their D-Day, and of course, at the end, they may have no option than to do military intervention. Of course, we know what that will result to. So what is your perspective? What is your concern in this direction?
Well, thank you once again for having me. It was Frederick Douglass, an escapist, a slave, whatever, who escaped from the camp, who had said that the limits of the tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those they oppress. And I think there is a renaissance. People are beginning to, as it were, react to the oppression that have been visited upon them over a period of time, particularly the Francophone countries. So if you don't understand the history, all that you're talking now would obviously make no meaning, make no sense. When you are saying ECOWAS has taken a decision, we want to ask the question, what do you exactly mean when you say ECOWAS has taken a decision? And what is it that ECOWAS, those who have taken the decision you are referring to, what exactly are they espousing? They're talking about democracy. ECOWAS is comprised 16 member states. The meeting that was first held in reaction, not in response, in reaction to the takeover of a democratically elected government in Niger, was a meeting attended by 7 heads of state, and one of the 8 states that attended was represented by the ambassador to Nigeria. So if you had 16 member states and 8 represented, what are you talking about the other 8 that was not there, the 8 that were not there? Countries like Burkina Faso, they are members, is a member of ECOWAS, Mali, a member of ECOWAS, and 4 other countries have said, if you strike Niger, we will rise in defense of Niger. These are 6 members saying if you did X, Y, Z out of the 16 that you have. So it will mean that you effectively have about 18 that is standing. Does that 18 even have the moral platform to operate? Because when you talk about democracy, I've heard people repeatedly say this. It has become a mantra. The worst form of democracy is a much better thing than the best of military rule. We ask, what is the essence of governance? What is the essence of governance? It is about the allocation of value. It is about meeting the citizenry at the point of ululation. It is about transformation of life. It is about infrastructural development. That is all about what governance is. Because if persons were going to hypothecate their part of the freedom that they are, contribute that to the collective, the understanding is that the collective will be able to protect the general interest of those persons who are prepared to do such hypothecation. And so when you say the worst, so what you simply will mean is that even when that government is tyrannical, for as long as it goes with the name democratically elected or democracy, it is well and good. Who talks that trash? Now, what moral platform did Macky Sall had, the president of Senegal, who was one of the 8 that took the decision that we must return to democratic rule? He's been in power since 2012. Between 2012 and now, it will mean that by next year he would have been in power for 12 years. What kind of democracy is that? He had tinkered with the constitution of Senegal to remain in power. Ouattara, we were supportive of the struggle of Ouattara to become president. We were supportive of his resistance to Gbagbo. Ouattara had been president for close to 2 decades. What democracy is that? So what moral platform had they to pontificate on what had happened in Niger? They didn't have it. They were moral cadavers. Those who were in that assembly were moral cadavers who didn't have the moral integrity. They were completely lean. In terms of integrity, they were absolutely lean. Very lean to pontificate on the issue of democracy because they didn't have it. You can't be giving what it is that you do not have.
Okay.
And so when the thinking process is studiously lapidified, it is either intended to palliate a contemplated crime or a crime that is already in existence. So these fellows they stink to high heaven. So they can't talk about what had happened in Niger.
Okay. All right. So we understand that the issue in Niger, it's quite touching. You know, when you call people tend to look at it thoroughly. To say that Niger has really not enjoyed democracy, as it were. So for military taking over in Niger is somehow justifiable. That's one analysis on one side. But again, you and I will recall that globally, military governments, military making incursion into governance is not fashionable, is not acceptable in any way. So that's also one narrative on one side. Perhaps that's what Nuruddin is trying to explain here. All right, so let us see the video now, the meeting that we had on Friday in Accra, where we had the ECOWAS commissioner talking about Abdel Fattah Musa, you know, headed that meeting. And of course, it was in this meeting that ECOWAS heads of states and commissioners had to say that a D-Day has been set. A D-Day has been set aside. And of course, that D-Day is only known to member states. But we also saw that some countries are not, take for example Nigeria, our own president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is the chairman of ECOWAS now, had to sought for the approval of the National Assembly for Nigeria to be on the same page in terms of military intervention in ECOWAS, in Niger. But we saw that the Nigerian National Assembly had to decline that requisition. And of course, if ECOWAS goes ahead to intervene in Niger, what it means is that Nigeria may not be part of that military intervention, because Nigeria does not have the National Assembly. Nigeria does not have its National Assembly approval to that effect. Nuruddin, let us look at this whole thing one more time now, just as what you were trying to explain, that these ECOWAS members, heads of state, they really don't have the moral grounds to want to say that Niger must be returned back to civil rule. Now, we understand that there are also interests. The Western interest is there, as perpetrated by United States of America, and of course the interest from the East has also been sponsored by Russia. So in all of this, where do we really position what is going on in Niger?
Yeah, this is where we obviously have a problem. That when you find people who exercise leadership in Africa, unfortunately, who are acquiesced to the studious emasculation of the space for critical thinking, then you have things like you have. The state of Niger is being said, is a proverbial whatever, but it doesn't matter by how much it is recapitulated. It does not miniaturize the import of the message that is being communicated. Niger is stupendously rich, yet is about the poorest country in the earth. How does one explain this juxtaposition of opulence in terms of resources and the enervating penury that the people will have to navigate the heaving ocean of impecuniosity in the face of enormous homogeneous resources? How does one explain this? Now, uranium is highly sought after. For you to get uranium, it will mean that you would devastate the environment where you're getting it from. And you could want to say, okay, there are some compensatory advantage, which is that we get it, something is destroyed, but we get something in return. They get absolutely nothing in return.
In Niger,
they get absolutely nothing in return. A French company is involved in mining, destroying the environment. We are in a world that is being ruled by corporate organizations. That is the truth of the matter. They destroy the environment, leave the people penurious, the environment is pulverized, the citizenry are pauperized, they have absolutely nothing, they continually eke a miserable existence. In Niger, over 90% of the population of Niger do not know what electricity is because it's one luxury that they cannot afford. And yet they provide all of the clover, all of the comfort for France. Niger is one of the African countries that was supposedly granted independence decades ago, and yet is still a slave. Is still a slave of France. Because whatever it is that is made in Niger today, the story is bad. And it is so troublous, so annoying, so petrifying that ECOWAS leadership is not interrogating all of these issues. That in Niger, in Benin Republic, in Togo, in Mali, you could generate all of the resources you want to generate. But the resources generated must be deposited in France. And if you have any infrastructure you wanted to build in Niger today, France has the option of forced refusal. In other words, if there is no a French company that is interested, it's only then that you can get another person, even if that person was a citizen of Niger, to do that job. And in doing the job, whatever resources that are generated must be deposited in the bank of the French bank.
Yeah.
And when you desire a loan, you go borrow your own money at an exchange rate, at a lending rate that is far much more than what will be given to a French person, your own money.
Now,
who takes all of that rubbish?
The question we ask now, because I don't know, little wonder if something is not fundamentally wrong with Africans. I mean, imagine Nigerians now trying to spike the French government for the Russian government. I mean, if Russia comes into Niger at the end of the day, is it not the same interest we're talking about here?
No, you see, what you look at is, unfortunately, you begin to say, who will be more protective? In Russia, in China dealings with Africa, we are not saying that they have been so benevolent or solicitous. But the fact of the matter is that they are much more benevolent slave drivers, if you were to use that term. They are not likely going to do to the Nigerian state what had been done for over 6 decades by France to Niger, which they will continue to do if the people do not do what they need to do. Because, like Douglas said, if the capacity for endurance perpetuates, then the tyranny has no limit.
You know, the Russians, they've also not been given the opportunity. Don't you think if you allow them, they may even do worse off?
No, you see, if you say they've not been given the opportunity, even in the period of the Cold War, wherever it was that they intervened, the intervention was for mutual benefit, not for exploitation. Not for exploitation. Like I told you, what these persons have done over time, there is a scramble for the diminishing world resources. That is a reality from which you would not run away from. And so the corporate world decides and dominates this. What exactly will you be talking about that you have in Africa that Russia does not have in superfluity? In America today, for example, over 70% of its power is dependent on coal. And so vast hectares running into millions of hectares in areas like West Virginia, Kentucky, have been completely devastated. No, it cannot hold life. It can't hold life. They have destroyed all of those societies, rendering the people who are there absolutely penurious. And so the scramble for all of these resources is more intense with the European countries and, unfortunately, France.
Okay. Now, sorry to interrupt you now. You see that Abdurrahman, that's Tiani now, that's the head of the military junta in Niger and his cohorts. They've said that they will return Niger back to civil rule in 3 years. That's their position now. But for ECOWAS cannot wait for another 3 years.
No, the question is, when you say ECOWAS cannot wait, what is ECOWAS' stake? What is ECOWAS' stake? If ECOWAS is talking about democracy, have we all been doped into imbecility? Why must we join ECOWAS in this peregrination into fantasy. If you are coming to equity, come with clean hands. If ECOWAS values democracy, demonstrate it in practical terms. What is Hassan Ouattara doing in government? 2 decades after? Is that democracy? What is Wolf doing in Senegal since 2012? Is that democracy?
Yeah, but these countries, their constitutions...
No, it's not constitution. They have tinkered with the constitution. So you come to power. The man in Senegal, all of those who have opposed him are in incarceration. They are in durance. Is that democracy? Democracy is all about the rule of law. It's the prevalence of the rule of law. It is not the dictate of one man. It is not draconic whatever rule. It is not you suppressing dissenting views. That's not democracy. It's the right for everybody within the ambit of the law to say what is lawful. And when there is an infraction, you use the process, the due process of law, in interrogating such infraction. And so, like we said, these are moral cadavers. They stink to high heaven. You can't swim in putridity and begin to talk about what is immaculate.
So are we saying that...
It is knavery.
Yeah, Nuruddin, are we trying to support military intervention?
Oh, no. You see, you must begin to ask questions that are fundamental. Do military intervention just happen in the blues? What is the provenance? What is the casus belli? What are those factors that drive it? What are those factors that drive it? When people ululate in the face of homologous resources, how do you explain that we suffer in spite of the superfluity of resources?
That we have.
How do you explain the fact that those you elect, quote and unquote, are richer than the state they preside over? They have caused to coagulate around themselves enormous resources, when the vast majority of the citizenry is scraping a miserable existence. Is that what democracy represents? That's not democracy. Is it democracy that you cannot even have a say as to how issues... It's all about consultation. Who consults who? They live in opulence. That is the reality. So, if you do not want a particular thing to happen, then do not do those things that will be the precipitator of that thing.
Okay. All right. So before we take a pause now, let us look at the position of the U.S. So that seems to be in support of the United Nations now, you know, with whatever the United Nations interest is in Niger. Now, we understand that the U.S. is planning to evacuate its troops away from Niger. We saw the headline a while ago when the U.S. military is saying that worst case scenario, evacuation from Niger is imminent. Now, Nuruddin, how do we look at all this now? United Nations having strong interest in Niger, and of course, U.S. planning to evacuate its troops from Niger.
Niger is a member state of the United Nations, so it should be interested. What ECOWAS is even doing is done in violation. Of Article 53(1) of the United Nations, which requires that any regional body or agency that wants to go on war must get the approval of the Security Council. And of course, that they will not get. Because even if China abstains...
The Security Council of the United Nations?
Yes. Even if China abstains, Russia will veto. So once Russia vetoes, it will mean you can't go to war. Why would we even be thinking about war without thinking about all of the configurations? You go to war against Niger in a country that is already ululating, I mean the Nigerian state, with our battered, tattered economy. Our soldiers are drained emotionally, psychologically. You say they should go to war. Only recently, even while you were giving ultimatum, a number of soldiers were fell in the line of duty. We have not been able to tackle these issues. And you want to open a floodgate. Who is advising us to do this? So if the United States of America has a military base in Niger, France has a military base in Niger, and you think this, there's a particular community I do not intend to call the name, perhaps it will sound offensive to them. A mortuary or a morgue was built in that community, a very big community.
In
the
Niger?
youth, In Edo State,
okay.
the youth mobilized to the venue of the site of the mortuary and vandalized everything. Because for us, is this a sign of progress? Or you bring in a police station to a community, very few persons who want that to happen. They say, are you defining us as criminals? Is that a mark of progress? So you come and put a military base, taking the danger of war away from your zone, making this zone that you have pauperized, the war zone, that will face devastation in the event of war. Countries like Ghana have agreed that, yes, America could use the Ghana airspace as a launching pad. Is that what we talk about development? And so all that they do for us is come, they say, we train your military men, and they siphon our resources. France has a military base in Niger. America has a military base in Niger. And yet they see all these. They see the poverty in that land.
Okay. All right, so we'll take a short pause now. Don't forget the program is Africa Discourse on Independent Television. We'll be looking at the ongoing situation, the military takeover in Niger. And of course, we have also said that a series of meetings have been going on, series of meetings have been held. The last one was in Accra in Ghana. That was on Friday, whereby Ecowas, had to make a very strong position that a D-Day has been set and there's no going back. They are saying that if the peaceful talks with the military junta in Niger fails, then of course they won't have any option other than to do a military intervention in Niger. And of course, you and I know when military intervention is involved, it's going to come down with some military force, and that may result to some war. Well, we've been able to know from Nuruddin now that that may not happen, because Niger, as a member of the United Nations, then of course they have the right to get the support of the United Nations Security Council for them to go on. Well, let's take a short pause now. When we return, we are going to talk about some other issues here on the same topic that we're handling this afternoon. Please stay tuned. The Nations Security Council is not even aware of the position of ECOWAS. So, like what you asked, the question you asked a while ago, that who is thinking for ECOWAS? I would like you to respond to that. Well,
United Nations, what we said is that the Article 53 requires that ECOWAS, as a regional body, before it will attack Niger, must get the approval of the Security Council
of the United Nations.
That they have not done, they have not gotten. That they will never get. Because if no other person of the 5 members, permanent members to veto, will veto it, you can be sure, dead sure, that Russia will do that.
Yeah.
Now they have not gotten that. So you're wondering, who does this thinking for them? The man you say you want brought back to power, let Bazoum return to power. He should be returned to power. He's in captivity, serving as a human shield for those some persons you want to attack. How do you intend to attack that he will not be part of the collateral damage? so it's weird thinking, and I think only those who are learning will begin to think the way they are thinking. You say you want to attack. And how do you explain? Do not forget that before the coup in Burkina Faso, 50–60% of the territorial integrity of Burkina Faso was an ungoverned space. It was not in the hands of government. These terrible human beings, the terrorists, whether they were ISIL, whether they were Boko Haram, whatever name you choose to call them, were in charge of those territories. Nigeria, if you take Niger, for example, the vast majority of the population are Hausas. You have the Kanuri, you have other tribes that are sharing the same ancestral whatever with those who are in Nigeria.
Yeah.
If you strike today, there is already crisis in Niger in terms of hunger, in terms of poverty and stuff like that. Once you do that, under international law, you can't stop those refugees who are seeking protection.
They'll come down to Nigeria.
They will come. And how do you profile them? How do you tell the terrorists from those who are genuine asylum seekers?
Yeah, but Nuruddin, when the military junta took over in Niger, one of their stronghold is that they had to, because of serious security issues
Of course.
in Niger. Now
Yes.
that they are
Yes.
taking over in Niger has also helped Nigeria security-wise.
Of course, because they are assisting, as it were. They are assisting, as it were, in the fight against the
terrorism.
terrorists
Yeah.
that have ravaged us for close to 2 decades now. Pauperized this country. Resources running into trillions have been wasted fighting terrorism. And so we needed them. And now you are going to open the floodgate for more issues to come when we can't even deal with the ones we are contending with. Our soldiers are overworked. A number of them would resign. I would definitely tell you so. Once you say go to war, perhaps it's the generals who have always sat in the comfort of their offices that will have to carry the rifles.
Okay. Now, Nuruddin, little wonder if ECOWAS eventually goes to war, which you are trying to look at here, that it may not possibly be. But let's just look at it, if possibly they go to war. Now, ECOWAS does not have the support of Nigeria. Nigeria's National Assembly did not approve, our members to be part of this now. So what do you think is going to be the implication of Nigeria? I mean, Nigeria has a president who is the chairman of ECOWAS as it stands now. So
well,
what is the implication?
You see, leadership in this country have always rigged in the culture of impunity. The National Assembly has said, don't go. People don't violate laws or rules when they know there will be consequences. Are there going to be consequences if our men are deployed today? I would dare say there will be none. The same National Assembly the same National Assembly that would say don't go will rationalize. The same National Assembly that says don't go would rationalize when it comes to the issue of meting out consequences for such infraction.
No, I don't understand now. Who consequences from what? From which side?
If the National Assembly, for example, says don't go, and Mr. President, in his contrived hubris, deploys the men.
But that will be ultra via the Constitution.
Beautiful. So what will be the consequence for such violation? It is removal.
Okay.
It will be removal.
Yeah.
And I'm not telling you that the president is so sure. The assurance is so overwhelming, so reaffirming that there will be no consequences.
Well,
if there were such impunity.
We cannot say that now because
we have seen that before now. And so nothing has fundamentally changed. Nothing has fundamentally changed. You saw that during the screening of those who have just been sworn in as ministers. And so you raise issues.
No, we are looking at 2 scenarios here now.
So it's about the issue of consequence. Once the leadership knows that there will be no consequence, impunity fructifies. And there will be none. And so if you think that just because the National Assembly said don't do it, he's not likely going to do it, the desire, the desperation to do it on the part of the leadership of ECOWAS is so pixelating. Far much more than heroin would do for even the first taker. So that don't just say it will not happen. But I'm telling you that the consequences, if they do, will be highly regrettable for us. We will suffer more as a country because in the very first instance, those who are saying go, who bankrolled, whether it was ECOMOG, just talk about what is that piece, whatever that ECOWAS had ever been involved that was not bankrolled by Nigeria. Just tell me anyone. And here, our economy is sneezing, is on its knee. We are financially prostrate. Can we take this burden? The only thing that is tempting us to wanting to take this body is because we are imperious. But for imperiousness, this is not the way to go. This is not the way to go. Oh, we have said it will not happen again. If you say it will not happen again, you must put in place things that will not make it happen, not by mere pronouncement.
Okay. All right, so Nuruddin, just as what we said that the military junta has said 3 years, for some analysts, they see 3 years perhaps too long of a time. I mean, for people that really wants to help out the situation now, they are so to say, don't you think that 3 years
I
is
have
too long?
seen some videos, except you are saying that those videos were doctored and manipulated. And I have spoken with some Nigerians, and I discovered that for whatever reason, the support for the coup is overwhelming.
So what does that mean? That they may want the coup to go on?
The support is overwhelming. You cannot weep more than the bereaved. If the people you say you want to manipulate say, we are not in any whatever, we are good the way we are, good to go, what then is your problem? So if they say in 3 years we would be addressing the issues that were the precursor for why we had to come into power, who the hell are you to say 3 years is too far down the line? Why are you setting this time? Who are you to set the time frame? Oh, it must be. In any case, Ecowas said 1 week restore. 1 week is since gone.
Okay.
No serious body makes pronouncement. That explains why I said they needed to think first before they talk.
Okay. Now, Nuruddin, perhaps one of the best ways to describe what is going on in Niger now is to see that we have a very unfair situation there. Now, we understand that...
when you say unfair, I want to explain.
Yeah, let me explain it now.
Unfair?
Yeah, a while ago, you made records to some of the junta videos that we have seen on the social media. But again, some analysts have also said that the reason why we are not seeing the anti-junta videos is because of it's a military regime. No one we want to, I mean, we're talking about military men here. So if we have that kind of situation, do we think, or do you think that the military junta is fair to Nigerians, as it were?
You may have 1 or 2 descending, whatever. You can't even suppress that. You can't even suppress that if there were. But I will tell you most frankly, what the military junta has done that has gladdened the heart of the vast majority of Nigerians is the fact that enough is enough. They are calling off the bluff of France. Those who have been elected.
Are they really enjoying the situation now? I mean, for a country that is under sanctions.
What sanction? No, when you talk about a country that is under sanction, who are those that will suffer the sanction? The juntas?
The Nigerians, not the junta.
Fine. So
Nigerians.
Did that make sense? Did that make sense? Did that make sense? When you say you have done that, what would just happen is that if I had a brother in Niger, then you think I'll eat to my fill while he suffers in a nation? No. The smuggling will continue. The smuggling will continue. When it becomes unbearable for them, they will move into this country. And we do not have what is required to filter.
Yeah, but there's a sanction now that no, you can't leave from Nigeria to Niger.
Says
no,
who?
Do
you have a border?
We do have a border.
Do you have a border?
We do have a border.
Forget the landmark that you call a border. The most porous in the world, perhaps.
Even with the sanction?
What sanction are you talking about? What sanction? This does not make sense. You have them, and those guys are still going tough. The only thing that made them mellow down was when someone was beginning to talk to them and the person was being reasonable. They were not babies. Say, I give you 7 weeks, restore. It explains why a high-power, whatever delegation went, they were restricted to the airport. Nobody saw them. A cleric went and said, hey, fine, we appreciate that you have issues. Can we talk? Oh, now you're talking to us as human beings. You can't browbeat us. You can't browbeat us.
Of course, we know that's perhaps because they have supports. You know, I mean, the military junta may not have done that without the Russian support. So we understand all that.
Now, when you say with Russian support, Russia does not have a base in Niger.
We know.
America does have.
We know, but
France has.
It's like
did they go to sleep when these fellows did what they did?
Well, but
so you know, when you see the truth of the matter. The truth of the matter is that once you have a position, you consolidate, and you go on a demographic expansion. Russia was not there. Now they are there. They are looking for who is our ally in this struggle. And Russia said, yes, your resources should be for you. Your resources should be for you. When the Russians were here building a Jakarta steel for us, we were making progress. The moment we say, hey, go away, we don't need you anymore, where are we? A minister for steel was recently appointed, and I say, which steel is he going to work on? Which steel is he going to work on? That we would have had close to 40, 50 years ago, with the pace at which the Russians were honest with us in all. Just name one of those projects they were involved in, that they were involved in espionage, where they ripped you up. Once they are building for you, they were taking our men, when Ajakuta was Ajakuta, as they are building, they were taking your men outside, training them on the technology that they were deploying to you. So, right, so it's a relationship that was fructifying.
Yeah, so as we draw the curtain on this program this afternoon now, military takeover in Africa, no way is good, so to say, because it's not a popular government, as it were. Now, Nuruddin, let's begin to look at things that we must consolidate on to discourage this military takeover. Niger now is running about the sixth, seventh nation in Africa that will have military takeover. So what are those things we must begin to look at as a continent so that we discourage military takeover, military making incursion into governance in Africa?
Yes, we must deal with the issue of corruption. Just tell me one person, be honest with yourself. Just tell me one person who had occupied a position, a political office in this country, who is not stupendously rich. Not because of the pay, access to common patrimony. I'll tell you most frankly, by the time Mr. President is done with those ministers who were sworn in today, a number of parties are going on. It's only in Africa you organize a party for a man who has been given an assignment even before he discharges that assignment. So you ask the question.
Some of those parties at times are organized by supporters.
It doesn't matter. The supporters will not organize party if there will be no patronage ultimately. So you and I know this. They are precursors. They are precursors. And so you must. It is an investment. There must be return on investment. So if you don't make yourself available. So when you have it that way, somebody was talking about a governor, a sitting governor, who was bluffing, so to speak, with a wristwatch he just acquired that sells for about 160 million in one of the Nigerian states where the poverty index is something else. Does that person have feeling? In some countries, if you flew first class, then you are in trouble. And like I say, we will not be able to deal with all of those issues if we do not impregnate ourselves with the spirit of patriotism. Because those who lead us, their loyalty is not to us. Their loyalty is to forces outside of this country. Why is it that we don't have electricity? Why is it that our refineries are not working? These are issues that we needed to raise conversation around. They are not going to work, they are not working, and they are never going to work because it is what is decided by the corporate world. And those are the persons to whom they have pledged their obeisance. Those are those to whom they have maintained an obsequious disposition towards. It is a global phenomenon. In the United States of America, in the very last election, companies like Chevron and all whatever, the monies they spent in the last election was far more than what the candidates spent. They were not contesting the election. Why would they spend more money? They run you out of office if you are not going to do their biddings.
Yeah.
They run you out of office if you are not going to do their bidding. So this is the challenge we have. Until and unless we say, hey, we must redirect loyalty. If you are a leader, you must be loyal to your country, not to some external forces. Until and unless we do that, You can never stop government being torpedoed.
Okay. All right. So I want to say a very big thank you to Nuruddin Asulugi, who is a renowned Islamic scholar and, of course, a lecturer with the department, former lecturer now, I should say now. All right, now, so you don't want to own up to that now. All right, so I want to say a very big thank you to Nuruddin. Always exciting anytime we have him on the show for the insights that he brings onto international issues, most especially international politics as it stands. Now, for the coup in Niger, we will continue to follow the coup. Of course, follow the stories on independent radio and television so that you know the updates as it stands now. Last Friday, a few days ago, a meeting was held, and of course, Ecowas had to come up with a position that they have set a D-Day for military intervention. That's one side. Then also for the military junta in Niger, they've also said that they have given the Nigerians 3 years that they will return Niger back to civil rule. So those are the two updates now as far as the situation in Niger is concerned. So Nuruddin, thank you so much for finding time to come on the show. So until the same time next week on the same program, Africa Discourse. My name is Evan Sunokuge. Thanking you for watching. Good afternoon.